What did Buzz Aldrin do when he accidentally tripped Neil Armstrong on the moon? He apologized. You get it? Because like they Apollo and apologized. I'll see myself out. Hey guys, welcome back to This Week in STEM. I'm Steph, and the first story of the week is a comeback story. No, Brett Favre is not coming back, or Tim Tebow, or any of those characters. No, it's everybody's favorite, the Brontosaurus. A new study led by Emmanuel Schopp places the Brontosaurus back into the dinosaur handbook. While some of you may not understand the significance behind this, and some of you may not even know that Brontosaurus was officially not a thing anymore, this is a huge deal in the paleontological community. Its equivalent would be if Pluto was reinstated as a planet. Now this comeback story begins way back in the 1800s during what was called the Bone Wars of 19th century paleontology. It sounds a lot more epic than it was, just basically two nerds with shovels digging up dinosaur bones. Edward Cope and Othniel Marsh, two paleontologists, made up the opposing sides of the Bone Wars. And they were huge rivals, racing to see who could identify more dinosaurs and dig up more fossils. The problem was that they were working so fast to beat out the other guy that they occasionally didn't do their due diligence while classifying the fossils.
According to Emmanuel Schopp, who led the latest study, they really rushed new species into the press as fast as possible, and many of these reference specimens on which they base new species are extremely fragmentary and are not comparable directly.
In 1877, Marsh's team uncovered the fossil of a gargantuan reptile in Colorado. Marsh lovingly dubbed this creature Apatosaurus ajax, named after the Greek hero Ajax and not so much the bathroom cleaner. And the name means deceptive lizard. 2 years later, Marsh uncovered a second huge reptile and named this one Brontosaurus excellus, or Noble Thunder Lizard. I think we all know who got the better name out of that deal. Now, flash forward to the early 1900s when researchers uncovered yet another fossil, but this one shared similarities to both Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus. Due to these similarities, researchers decided that they were separate species, but they belonged to the same genus, meaning that they were distant cousins. But this still left a lot of unanswered questions about Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus. Eventually, based on the taxonomic classification rules developed by Carl Linnaeus in the 18th century, researchers decided that Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus were one and the same. And before you get all up in arms saying that this is an outdated system, we still use those same rules developed by Linnaeus today for classification. So Brontosaurus was wiped out of the dinosaur handbook until Schopp and his team showed up. Now, Schopp's research was not solely focused on the Brontosaurus and its classification. Instead, he wanted to review the entire fossil classification method and determine whether anatomical differences between specimens were indicative of variations between species or between species and genera. Now, if this sounds incredibly ambitious, it is. Schopp and his team analyzed around 500 anatomical traits in the dozens of specimens of the 20 or so diplocid species. Diplocid is the umbrella which Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus and many others fall under in terms of classification. They used this data to generate a huge family tree for all the diplocids. 5 years and 20 museums later, the completed family tree confirmed established ideas about the evolutionary relationships between diplocids. The researchers also concluded that Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus were different enough to have their own genus. Specific differences included that Apatosaurus has a much thicker neck than Brontosaurus and overall is a much more robust specimen. Now, while it is definitely the most well-known dinosaur, Brontosaurus was not the only dinosaur to get shuffled around in the family tree. Oh, let's see if I can pronounce these names. Diplodocus hayi got its own genus, and Dinoherosaurus, I think I'm pronouncing that right, got moved to the Supersaurus genus. So now he can start wearing his underwear on the outside of his spandex suit. Now, there has been some pushback from the scientific community, and Schopp anticipated this. In fact, he was hoping that it would generate conversations, because as he states, that's how science works. Moving on from prehistoric reptiles to robotic creepy crawlies, a company called Tethers Unlimited has developed an in-space manufacturing system called Spiderfab. This system uses arachnid-like robots that will be able to construct large structural objects in orbit around Earth or even in deep space. There are tons of advantages of building things in space rather than building them here on Earth. Most importantly, it's cheaper. It's also way more efficient, especially for large objects. Take the International Space Station, for example. We couldn't launch that all at one time, so instead we had to send modules up piece by piece that we completed here on Earth. With the Spiderfab system, we can build large structures like that out in space without having to launch them. and the launch environment creates an entirely other problem. As someone that's had to take into account launch environment survival, it's an incredibly painful process. You have to recognize everything to be able to withstand incredible vibration forces. So as an engineer, having to not worry about the launch environment is a huge weight off your shoulders when designing hardware. So how exactly does the system work? Well, as can be guessed by the name, it all starts with the Spiderbots. This multi-armed metal arachnid manufactures structural elements using a spinneret. Using a second spinneret, it ties the structural elements together as it scooches across its ever-growing web, or the structure that it's building. This process could be used to build radio antennas, space booms, or even solar arrays. Robert Hoyt, Tethers Unlimited CEO and chief scientist, is confident that SpiderFab will be ready to go sometime in the next decade, and his enthusiasm doesn't stop there.
During a presentation with NASA's Future in Space Operations Working Group, Hoyt said, "A really long-term objective for all of this work is to eventually enable the use of in-situ resources to construct the infrastructure in space needed to support humanity's expansion throughout the solar system."
Now, Tethers Unlimited still has a very long road to hoe with such an ambitious mission, but they are getting some help. They've received 2 rounds of funding from NASA's Innovative Advanced Concepts program. With this funding, the team has developed a microwave-sized machine that is able to manufacture lightweight structural trusses using carbon fiber spools at a rate of about 2 inches per minute using a process similar to 3D printing. Currently, Tethers Unlimited is working on developing the next generation of Trusselator, which is what they call that machine, but it kind of sounds like what Jim Trussell might have called himself in high school. Hoyt and his team are hoping to launch the first proof of concept into orbit sometime in the next decade. While spider robots may seem pretty sinister and probably the antagonist for the next Terminator movie, they are far less sinister than what could potentially be lurking in your bloodstream. I'm talking about cancer cells. They're incredibly difficult to find in a person's bloodstream. In fact, in a 1 milliliter sample of blood, there may be as many as 5 billion red blood cells, but only 1 to 10 circulatory tumor cells, or CTCs. Needle meat haystack. Detecting CTCs is critical, not only for determining if a patient actually has cancer, but also for determining what stage it is and determining whether or not a treatment is actually working. Now, there are methods today that exist for detecting cancer, but they have their problems. For example, antibodies are sometimes used to bind directly to the CTCs, but the problem here is, in order for the antibodies to be effective, you kind of have to know what kind of cancer you're dealing with. Additionally, the antibodies can change the genome of the CTCs, which makes it incredibly difficult to target that specific kind of cancer with a very precise treatment. However, hope is on the horizon with a new technology that uses sound waves to separate out the CTCs from the bloodstream. So how exactly does this device work? The device has 2 acoustic transducers that are placed on either side of a very small channel. The transducers are angled in such a way that they'll create a standing wave with high and low pressure sections. When a blood sample is placed inside the channel, the standing wave pushes the cells to either side of the channel. The peaks and troughs of pressure separate out the CTCs. Researchers tested this method using 2 types of CTCs that were close in size, and the results were incredibly promising. They were able to separate out 83% of the CTCs in the sample. The system is also incredibly fast. For anybody that's ever had any kind of analysis done, you know it takes a while. This technology can analyze a sample in only a few hours, and they're hoping to increase the speed as the technology develops. As somebody who's recently experienced a loss from cancer, I can't wait to see how this technology develops in the hopes that it will be able to save many more lives. Moving on to lighter and happier things, while doctors are searching for cancer cells in your blood, NASA scientists are looking for something very different in the stars, specifically life, and they're pretty optimistic that we're not going to have to wait much longer to find it. On Tuesday, NASA chief scientist Steph made the very bold statement that we are on the brink of realizing that we're not alone in the universe.
I think we're going to have strong indications of life beyond Earth within a decade, and I think we're going to have definitive evidence within 20 to 30 years. We know where to look, we know how to look. In most cases, we have the technology and we're on a path to implementing it. And so, I think we're definitely on the road.
Stefan isn't the only one feeling optimistic about our chances here. Former astronaut and current associate administrator for NASA's Science Mission Directorate John Grunsfeld also agrees with her.
I think we're 1 generation away in our solar system, whether it's on an icy moon or on Mars, and 1 generation away on a planet around a nearby star.
Now, recent discoveries in our own solar system have given us reason to believe that there are plenty of places where life could thrive. There's more than enough good old H2O to go around on places such as Europa, Ganymede, and several others. If you recall, a couple weeks ago I talked about this in one of my topic talks, and you can check it out here. I'll include an annotation. There's also plenty of possibilities beyond our solar system. Enter Kepler. Data gathered by the Kepler mission has led us to believe that nearly every star has a planet system orbiting around it, and many of those planets are probably habitable. Rocky planets such as our own and Mars are way more common than gas giants like Saturn or Jupiter. Sorry, Saturn and Jupiter, you're still my favorites. There's plenty of water throughout our galaxy, so much so that NASA's Astrophysics Division Director Paul Hertz called the Milky Way a soggy place. Yes, soggy, like those Cheerios in that bowl that you put in the sink this morning and totally forgot about until just now. Gross. Now, looking for life in the universe isn't just about finding habitable planets, and sometimes you're not always looking for things that are alive so much as evidence that something alive could have been there at some point. Mars rover Curiosity has found molecules containing that magical little element that starts with a C, carbon, and fixed nitrogen. Both of these things are two basic ingredients for life as we know it on Earth. The next Mars rover, which is scheduled to launch in 2020, will look for more evidence of past life and gather some samples for us to analyze back here on Earth. Even further down the road, NASA is hoping to send people to Mars sometime in the 2030s. And as Dr. Hubbard, a former Ames director, stated in the recent Star Talk Live that I attended in San Francisco, which was awesome, humans are much better to send than robots. Humans know what they want to look for, and they don't have to wait 20 minutes to receive a command and then roll on over to where they need to be. So humans are better for space exploration purposes, aside from the whole having to keep them alive thing. You win that round, Curiosity. Now, in terms of looking beyond our solar system, the James Webb Space Telescope is scheduled to launch in 2018. This space telescope will look at the atmospheres of super Earth-sized planets beyond our solar system in order to determine if they contain gases that could potentially have been generated by life. Now, for all of you alien fanatics out there, please keep in mind that when we find life, it's probably not going to look like what you think it is. In fact, you probably won't even be able to see it with your naked eye. Researchers anticipate that the first life forms that we find will in fact be microbes. Sorry about it, E.T. Either way, I'm incredibly excited to see what the future holds for these discoveries. To quote one of my all-time favorite science fiction authors, Arthur C. Clarke, two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. So let that sink in and sleep tight tonight, kiddies. So that's it for this week in STEM, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, if you're all about the STEM stuff, the science, the tech, the engineering, the math, and you'd like to see more like this, go ahead and feel free to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'm putting out videos like this every Saturday, and I'm working on making a consistent Wednesday video. Getting better at it, I promise. If YouTube's really not your thing, but you want to check me out on some other social media, I will include links to my social media down below, along with links to all the stories that I covered today, so feel free to check those out. Don't forget, if you have any really cool STEM-related news stories that pop up throughout the week, feel free to tweet them at me at StephEvs43 on Twitter using the hashtag TWISTEM, and they might wind up in next Saturday's video. Also, if you have any STEM-related topics that you're curious about, feel free to tweet those at me too using the hashtag TopicTalk, and they might show up on my Wednesday segment, aptly called Topic Talk. Feel free to share this video on any of your social media platforms and to get your friends and family members to check it out and maybe to subscribe. That'd be cool too. But with that, that's it, guys, and I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you on Wednesday. Uptown, funk you up. Uptown, funk you up. Say what? Taxonomic rules of, what is it? Taxonomic? That's a big old word. Chop and his team analyzed evolutionary. So concluded. I just made up a word. Researchers also concluded. God, why do I keep saying concluded? That's not even a word, Steph. God. Unlimited. Tether's unlimited. Why can't I do that? This multi-armed metal arachnid. I have so many N's in this sentence. This was not well thought through, but I am going to get it because I am stubborn and will never say die about this. Built a so many M's. Why so many M's? Rocky planets. Funny. The team has developed a microwave. I'm so mad. I had this and the camera shut off. Oh, I'm so mad. Stefan isn't the only one feeling optimistic. That they're... Dang it! Ah! La 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 la. Why am I doing Christmas? We don't know. Great. Separate. Nailed it.